Significant. I want to ask you, though, about the trip you just made to Moscow, where you met face-to-face yourself with Vladimir Putin to set up this July summit with President Trump. What specific changes in Russian foreign policy are you going to ask him for? What is the goal?
Well, the goal of this meeting really is for the two leaders to have a chance to sit down, not in the context of some larger multilateral meeting, but just the two of them to go over what's on their mind about a whole range of issues. President Trump has just said in the past week he's going to raise things like Syria, like Ukraine, like the election meddling issue, really the whole range of issues between us. And I think that in the president's mind, this is very important because it gives him an opportunity to size up Vladimir Putin, to see where there are areas where we might make progress together and where there are areas where we may not.
But right now, Russia is blanket bombing southern Syria. That violates the last agreement Vladimir Putin made with President Trump. Why would he believe that he's in any way trustworthy? Well,
we'll see what happens when the two of them get together. There are possibilities for doing a larger negotiation on helping to get Iranian forces out of Syria and back into Iran, which would be a significant step forward.
Use force to do so?
To have an agreement with Russia, if that's possible. This has been something that's been going on now for nearly 7 years, this conflict in Syria. But the Iranian presence now across Iraq and Syria, really reaching into Lebanon and their connection with Hezbollah, which has been an Iranian subsidiary from the outset.
And they're declaring victory as Assad won the war.
Well, I don't think Assad is the strategic issue. I think Iran is the strategic issue. It's not just their continuing nuclear weapons program, it's their massive support for international terrorism and their conventional forces in the Middle East. And I would say this is something that the two presidents will want to discuss at length, because I think President Trump's decision to withdraw from the misbegotten Iran nuclear deal, reimpose our sanctions, begin to put much more pressure on Iran, is having an effect on their decision-making, not just on the nuclear issue, but on these efforts to extend Iranian influence around the region.
And you think Russia can be a partner?
We'll see. I think the Russians are always saying to us they want to cooperate on international terrorism.
They've been saying that for years.
They certainly have. In some areas, going back to the Bush administration, we did cooperate. On Iran, which has been the largest financier of international terrorism around the world, I think that's where the real issue is right now.
I want to ask you about the Director of National Intelligence, Dan Coats, who said very clearly in June, Russia is actively targeting American society in ways that could affect our midterm elections. Did you tell Putin and his associates to knock it off?
I had meetings all throughout the day on Wednesday, including with President Putin and his foreign minister and his defense minister and his diplomatic advisor for about an hour and a half. The election meddling issue was definitely something we talked about, and I thought it was significant.
Meddling now.
Yes, absolutely. Meddling in the 2016 election and our concern about what they're doing in the 2018 election. And what President Putin said, through a translator, of course, but what he said was there was no meddling in 2016 by the Russian state.
Very little happens without Vladimir Putin's okay.
Well, I think that's an interesting statement. I think it's worth pursuing. I'm sure the president will want to pursue it. Well, I don't know. I didn't have an unlimited amount of time with him, but that's very different from saying my view that there was no Russian meddling at all.
So you see that as some admission on his part?
I think the president will have to pursue that further, and I think that's one reason why he and President Putin need to have this conversation. As much as I enjoy speaking with my counterpart in Russia, with the foreign minister, with others, is that Vladimir Putin is the one who makes the decisions, and I think our leader needs to speak with him.